Hello and welcome to Framingham Now. I'm Jack Patrick Lewis, the state rep for Ashland, and one of the state reps right here in Framingham. Today we are continuing our conversations with one of the candidates running for the seat previously held by Representative Chris Walsh. We all miss Chris. Chris loved Framingham and advocated for Framingham in the state, and we will not soon forget the contributions he's made to this wonderful town. But his constituents need a rep. They need an advocate, and I'm happy to play a small part in interviewing the folks who want to continue that journey. Today I have Tom Blandford on the show. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Tom, why do you want to be state rep?
Well, first, I'd like to make a little critique to what you just said.
Okay.
Okay, you said town.
Oh, I'm sorry. Framingham was a town for what, 8,000 years?
Exactly. I'm not used to saying city yet.
Correct away, yes.
I'm running for state rep, Mr. Lewis, because not for so much what's going on now. I like Framingham. I think we're in a good place now. My concern is for the future. Your children, my children, your grandchildren, future grandchildren, my grandchildren I have now. I have 8 grandchildren right now.
I hope I don't have grandchildren for a couple more years.
Well, you're supposed to tell me that I look like I don't have any.
I just wanted to put that out there, but yes, that too.
So I'm running for the future, because as we are a city now, I know coming from New York and myself originally, I know that a lot of changes can happen, and my concern is to watch out for my constituents in the 6th Middlesex District of Framingham. I want to watch out for the most vulnerable people, the homeowners, the property owners. I want to make sure that their property taxes are not going to go skyrocketing as we start to bring in more businesses. I want to make sure that's careful and looked after. The schools are carefully looked after. I have 8 grandchildren that are going to Framingham Public Schools. I sent 5 of my own children through the school system. I want to make sure that somebody is advocating. They used to call me in the marketing world, they used to call me a pit bull. I would make sure that the money was there. I also want to make sure that our elderly are looked after and taken care of. Our health care is something that I advocate for, and make sure that every person who deserves it has a right to access of health care as well. Somebody has to make sure that these things are being looked after. And the opioid epidemic, I was telling you a little bit about that before we started, and I want to make sure that we're on track and that the people who deserve our help are getting it. I don't want to leave anyone behind. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Let's talk about taxes.
Okay.
Something that I know every candidate for elected office loves being asked about. There were some proposals to tweak our current flat tax, to increase taxes on incomes over $1 million, to bring in more funding for education and transportation. And while those will not be on the ballot this November, I'm curious what your thoughts are about our current tax structure and any tweaks you would make if given the opportunity.
Well, one of the things I'm not advocating for, Mr. Lewis, is I'm not...
Call me Jack. My kids call me Jack. Everyone should call me Jack. Mr. Lewis, I think, is my grandma.
It's just that my parents, that's how they raised me, so you have to excuse me.
I'll give you a pass.
I'll try to get used to Jack. I'm not in favor of raising taxes or using it as a last resort. What I'd like to do is, just like any municipality, I'm sure there's some waste that we can look at. And my goal is to actually work with the auditor and find out if there's certain waste that we can reallocate some of those monies back home and bring it back into Framingham. People, they tend to always want to talk about the government and waste, and my idea is to look for that waste and smaller government and bringing it back home. When I say smaller government, I mean letting our local legislature and mayor and city councilors actually decide where some of that money goes. I think that would be helpful as far as building bridges, helping to keep property taxes lower, looking for some waste in that way, and helping our schools as well. And I know, just like I said, any other municipalities, cities, there's always some waste that we can find, So I'm not advocating for raising taxes, and if I did, it would be a last resort. It's something I don't believe in doing. I think Framingham is in a good place right now, and I want to make sure that we stay there. Again, you got 3 children, imagine, 10, 15 years from now? What is it going to be like for them? So we have to make sure, I think, that we keep our eye on the ball, and as Framingham transitions over into a full-blown city, that we're not just astronomically blowing up everything with raising taxes and hurting the homeowners. We don't want to drive down our tax base, because then the people that are left behind will wind up picking up that burden.
One of the things that tax dollars go to support are social services, and I'm curious what your thoughts are in the idea that the Commonwealth has a responsibility to ensure that kids and families are provided at least basic social services, if not enough to thrive as a family. So I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, I'm going to tell you, at 15 years old, I was thrown out of my house, in upstate New York, in the middle of winter. It's a little touchy subject for me. I work now in my ministry, Jack.
There we go. Yeah.
I work now with disenfranchised people. Now, I've been doing it for the last 14, 15 years. People who have been incarcerated. I've watched young ladies who get pregnated and the man is gone. And they're struggling. My own daughter was not able to get child care because she had a job. It's an entry-level job. But because she had a job, they couldn't give her child care. My ministry, what we do, and I want to bring this to the State House, is we actually work hand in hand with these people to actually transition off of welfare. I actually took Bill Clinton's plan from welfare to work, and we make it literal. In Team Excel Ministries, we've helped over probably in the last 5 years, we've helped about 2,000 people either start their own businesses. We train them, we develop them, we invest in them. We get donations from local churches and municipalities and community centers and synagogues, mosques, and we train them, we develop them, we help them to fill out resumes. We invest in that way so that they can't rely. Let's be honest, welfare is not it's not enough. You and I both know that. It's not enough. And one of the embarrassing things for me was that after the money was gone, I have to go down to the Salvation Army and have to ask for more. And there is really, I know, I don't want to make this a right or left issue. I don't want to make this a Republican or Democrat issue. This is a people issue. This is, and even though I am a Republican candidate, I care about right and wrong, okay? That's the bottom line for me. And the truth is that there's some embarrassment to receiving welfare. Whether my Republican friends of mine agree with that or not, there is some embarrassment. We have to hide the cards, and people are not happy about being on food stamps. They're not happy about that, but it's a means to an end. I think if we are going to give any type of benefits, we need to work rapidly in getting people transitioned off of those benefits as quickly as possible, getting some money, and maybe advocate for job training. Invest in job training, invest in our young people. Pretty much what my ministry does, because we don't want people to be there forever. To me, welfare, Jack, is another form of slavery, okay? And mentally, I think if the government has the power to give you a check, they have the power to take it away. That's giving the government too much power. And I'm advocating for those people that are on welfare to say, I want to be independent. I'm tired of being embarrassed. They don't give us enough anyway. And let's start taking some of that money and start reallocating it back home and helping the people to transition off of the public assistance.
What are your thoughts on,
so it should be temporary is what I'm saying. Okay. It shouldn't be forever. It should be temporary with a plan in place. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's all right.
I hate when people say I'm sorry to cut you off because then they still do it.
No, I wanted to, joining on that same vein though, a couple weeks ago, the gender pay equity legislation went into effect.
Correct.
And I know there continues to be an effort to ensure that that's implemented equitably while also acknowledging that racial pay equity is not where it could be or should be. Right. Your thoughts on what role the state rep or government should play in that, if any?
Well, I think that education, particularly, and I don't want to sound like I'm playing, I don't want to be racially biased, but I feel like a lot of money should be, particularly in the minority community. And I think we need to see what people get wrong is they think that when they're giving money out of their taxes, out of their tax dollars, what they're not looking at is the long term. I've owned a marketing company now for over 15 years, and all we do is focus. The Japanese, the Chinese, they got it correct. You focus 10 years down the road. So what I'm looking at and what I'm advocating for is that we start to invest now in these people now. And to be honest, it's $15 an hour. That's still not enough. I like Governor Baker. I have a lot of respect for Governor Baker, but I personally feel like it should have been $25 an hour, just because of the way that things grow. You know, the economy grows every 10 or 11 years or so. You know, so we want to prepare people as we get them ready to transition, into a full working force. I think, and minorities are hurting the most, and I think that, immigrants as well. How can we expect them to become? First of all, they got a lot to deal with. They do. I mean, how can we expect them to become contributing members of society if we're scaring them away? You know, this is ridiculous. If they're here, we need to invest in them and help them to transition and assimilate into what's going on here in Framingham. So I think education is the key. I'm a strong advocate for education. My father was on the school committee in New York, so he was definitely a strong advocate for education. I hated school, to be honest. I do more reading now than I did when I was in school. And I think particularly that immigrants and minorities, minorities, African Americans, Hispanics, suffer a lot. And I think that we have got to make it where it's their goals can be reachable again, you know. And I think we need to start. I don't care what anyone else says. My bottom line is I'm donating anything I get from the state. Should I be elected, I'm not taking a paycheck. Here's why. I don't want one. I want to serve the public. Steve Burton from Channel 4 News, WBZ, said, you just want to make a difference. It's that simple. I mean, I myself, being homeless at 15, living under a tree on America Street in Framingham in the winter, you know, in a tent. I was freezing to death, you know. But I rather have a hand up than a handout. And I think that education is where it starts. I don't just think that, I know that's key. It's key. I went back to school. I got my high school diploma. I went to college. I will be honest, I didn't finish college. I had a family. I started my own company, and I was working 2 jobs while my wife was working part-time, which is 12 hours a day. That's part-time, while we're raising 5 kids. So we need to start taking and thinking ahead. You know, where are we going to be 5 years from now? Where are we going to be 10 years from now? If we don't start investing in the people now, I think our children, Jack, they won't have the pleasure to build Framingham. They're going to have to refund it. That's what I think.
One of the things you talked about was investing for 10 or 20 or 30 years down the road. I'm curious if we could talk a little bit about education and what role the state should play I'm sorry, I said education, I meant the environment, in reaching these ambitious goals we set of reduction by this percentage by 2020, 2030, 2040, 2050. Yeah. What's your environmental platform that you're running?
I actually don't have one. Okay. Not yet. I'm going to be straight. I'm a very honest, straightforward thinking person. This is something I would like to look into. My promise to you or vow to you would be that I would be talking to other people who have more knowledge about this. I'm not going to say something that I have no knowledge about. I definitely advocate for cleaner energy, obviously, but I want to be able, I would also make it a habit to have some town meetings with my constituents in my district and to listen to them and their point of view and what they say as well. The number one thing that I want to make clear is that if I'm not serving my constituents properly, then I deserve to go. I need to go home, pack it up. So I want to hear from them constantly. On my flyer that I'm passing out, my team is passing out to people door to door now. And the bottom of the flyer, it says, I won't vote until I hear from you. Basically, we get to hear exactly what we're going to be voting in advance, a week or two. You get time to read this stuff over.
Ideally. Sometimes it's, it's a whole lot less time.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, but in real time, send that to people through email. You know, the way that technology works right now, in real time, and I can hear from my constituents, and by the way, on top of that, going home, listening to them, talking to them, having coffees, and being able to come back and vote on the way that my constituents want me to vote. That's another reason why I don't need a paycheck. I don't want a paycheck because I want to make sure that I'm voting the way that the voters want me to vote. So as far as the environment goes, I will talk to people. I will be, if I should have the pleasure of working with you at the State House, I'll be listening to you. I'm all ears, I'm only 4 feet and 12 inches tall, but I'm all ears. I do have more ears than I do height.
Okay. No. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, the House passed a criminal justice bill earlier this year, trying to reform how the criminal justice system works in the Commonwealth. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that piece of legislation and anything else maybe we should do in the years ahead.
I think it's very important that we start to work on how we transition people from being incarcerated to being independent. One of the things that I propose, one of the legislations that I'd like to propose is it's very important that if there's a victimless crime that was committed, that we get this expunged off their record, right? I think now it's 10 years. I'd like to see it go a little faster. I'm more of like a community activist, and one of the things that I used to preach about, I held Framingham's first rally years ago. One of the things that I preach about, though, is that how people could complain when certain people are getting government assistance, or the recidivism rate is so high when you're not thinking. Why do you think that's happening? Because you won't give them a job. You won't take a chance with these people. In regards to that, I think that what we need to do is we need to make sure that people are prepared to transition from being incarcerated, that they have the resources that they need. If they're not in trouble, if they haven't gotten in any trouble, let's say in the next, now this isn't written in stone, but let's say in the next 5 years or so they haven't been in trouble. We need to get it expunged. Take 5 years off if it's a victimless crime. Now, if there's a victim involved, we have to look at it case by case. Somebody who hurts a child. I have 5 children. You have 3. So I'm thinking you. Sometimes that, as a father, that hits sometimes emotionally. But there are people. Marijuana. I know several people who. By the way, I inhaled. Okay, so. But I know several people who smoke marijuana, okay? Several young people. I work with them in my ministry, okay? That's a victimless crime. Are you serious? We're wasting a lot of court's time here. We're not actually helping these people if we incarcerate them. Heck, they don't even deserve a fine, This is ridiculous. I think we need to start... we really have to be careful because it can become a problem where we're talking about nationally children being removed from their parents. That's happening here too, right here. And I'm not here to knock the United States of America. I'm not here to knock Massachusetts. I love Framingham. But we have to be very careful because a father may be in his home and maybe he got off work, he did a 13-hour job working construction. And he got home, he came home, and he's having a beer, and maybe he's smoking a little pot, okay? And all of a sudden, the police are there removing that father or that mother away from their children, I'm thinking to myself, does this even make sense? It doesn't. Sometimes I think we're very hypocritical here, and we have to be careful about that. So one of the things I want to do is I think that we need to look at our laws. I do have a lawyer, Joe Leone. He's a lawyer of mine that I'll be working closely with, as well as other people in the legislature, and make sure that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars by, putting people in jail, locking them up. Let's invest in these people, right? Let's start investing in people. Let's help them get a job. Let's help them get the education, the resources that they need. And in Team Excel Ministries, we do that. We actually go and buy them the clothes. And we go to Joseph A. Bank to buy these people clothes. We don't buy them, donations from the Salvation Army. We actually want them. We tell them to take the earring out of the ear, get a haircut. We pay for all that, and we help them become contributing members of society. I have real quickly, a gentleman, his first offense, Jack, for drugs, did 5.5 years in prison. Come to find out, he himself never did drugs. He was offered that, and I know this, being from New York and myself here when I was younger, I've gotten in trouble. I have. I'm not ashamed to admit what I used to be, But come to find out, he was selling the drugs because his family was living at the Monticello Hotel on Route 9 in Framingham. They were homeless. Nobody would hire him. Sorry. Nobody would hire him. So he came to Team Excel. And because he had 5.5 years, we asked him what he wanted to do. He didn't have a lot of education. And he had 3 kids. And I went to the hotel and I visited this family. And he wanted to work landscaping. We're thinking, the people on my staff were thinking, why couldn't you get hired doing landscaping? We find out talking to the people, different companies, landscaping companies, because they go to different homes. They didn't trust this guy. So you know what we did? We bought him a truck. We bought him a lawnmower. We bought him a weight. We said, let's get you a license. We'll help you start your own business. That's the solution. That's the solution. It's investing. You want to keep them under your back. You don't box them in so that they're forced to do something that you don't want them to do. That allowed him now to. There's a guy now who's in Framingham. He's an African American. Went to Wharton School. He has a bicycle. He does bike. I think you might have heard from him, right? Heard of him or something. Brandell.
Oh yes.
Yes. Right. He employs people who've been incarcerated.
He does phenomenal work.
Phenomenal work, and I'm working with him. I'm meeting with him Wednesday for coffee, as a matter of fact, because I want to help get that started. Otherwise, we're just going to keep seeing this recidivism rate going back up again. So if you want to keep people incarcerated, then go ahead and do that, but you're going to pay a heavy, heavy price. If you want to see people actually become contributing members to society, then you got to be ready to invest in those people. Somebody invested in me. And because of that now, I'm able to run about 3 or 4 different companies. I'm an author, of a book, From the Trenches of Hell. It talks about how I did it, from being an ex-alcoholic and drug addict after 23 years of sobriety. I thank God for that. I was on the NAACP. I was a member of the NAACP, Boy Scouts of America. I'm proud of that, I'm also a member of the Log Cabin Republicans as well. Again, people say, how can you be a Republican? It's not about that. It's about what's right and wrong. That's the bottom line. And what's right is that we have to start, as Framingham's like that. We invest anyway, right? I love these people here. I love living in Framingham. I do. And I love the diversity here. But we also have to be careful of where we're putting our efforts, our time, and our money, and making sure that the resources that we have is being invested correctly. So incarceration is something that's also very dear to me. I've already been doing it, and I want to continue to do it to make sure that people transition properly when they come out of prison.
Excellent. I want to change gears because we're running low on time. I'm instituting a new called lightning round, where I ask a complicated question and urge you to answer it with a yes or a no. In life, we have strong.
You can tell I like to talk, right?
Yeah, I know. So yes or no, yes or no. Do you like dogs?
I love dogs.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Do you eat ice cream?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good.
So I guess it would depend on the flavor, though.
Yeah, but so try, because at the end of the day, through compromise, through amendments, you're provided a piece of legislation, and you have to vote yes or no. So would you support legislation that requires that companies in Massachusetts that receive tax credits have to pay their employees a living wage and be provided benefits?
Yes.
Do you support single-payer health insurance?
No.
Are you willing to join workers during a picket line or on a strike if they invite you to join them?
again, that would be
Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you support the president's initiative to ban immigrants from certain countries from entering the United States?
No.
Do you support a woman's right to choose?
no.
Do you support?
I'm sorry. Depending on the age.
Okay.
Okay. 18 and above, yes. Anything below, it goes. That's a little bit more complicated to answer that way. But
Do you support the death penalty?
oh God, no.
Okay. Do you support allowing citizens to register and vote on election day? Same day
Yes,
voter
yes,
registration.
yes.
Did you support what the legislature did in raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour?
I wish it was more.
Did you support our efforts to ban conversion therapy for minors?
Yes.
Did you support our efforts to institute paid family medical leave?
Yes.
Would you have voted in favor of extreme risk protection order?
Yes.
Do you support the Safe Communities Act?
Of course.
Excellent. See that? No lightning came down from the ceiling or anything.
No, but some of the stuff,
Yes.
requires a little bit more longer explanation
Yes.
too. I mean,
And life can't be summed up often in the yes or no. But I
Right.
appreciate you walking down that road with me. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure was all mine, Jack.
Just want to remind folks how they can vote for you. If folks want to get to know you better, what should they do?
they should go to my website. It's tomblandford.org. That's TOMBLANDFORD.org. tomblandford.org. Or they can even call me, and I'll pick up the phone and answer, or I'll return the call. It's 508-298-2361. And of course, I'll be knocking on their doors as well, so they'll be seeing a lot of me.
Excellent.
I can do this job full time. My companies are being ran by other people. My son is running my company now, so I can do it full time. When I say full time, that's 24 hours a day, And my children are all grown up now, moved out of the house. I know you still have to work with that.
So on September 4th, and this is the part I think people need to remember or understand, is that when they go to vote, they go to the same place they've always gone to vote. They ask for a ballot. And when they get their ballot, when they look for state representative, there won't be any names listed.
Correct.
No Democrat, no Republican. And if they want to vote for you,
Right.
they need to fill in the little oval
Right.
next to the blank line and write Tom or Thomas.
Tom.
Tom.
Only Tom is
just
way-
Tom.
Yeah.
Blandford.
Right.
And like in other primaries, when you go, registered Republicans and independents, folks who are unenrolled in a party, can ask for Republican ballots. And if
Correct.
that's the path they go,
Correct.
then that's how they vote for you.
Correct.
So if you're unenrolled in a party, an independent, or a registered Republican, you ask for a Republican ballot,
Right.
and then at the blank line under state rep, they fill in the oval and write Tom Blandford.
Correct.
Excellent. And then you will then go on, if you get a certain number of votes, a certain number of write-in votes,
Right.
onto the general election,
Yes.
which is...
I need 150 Republican write-in votes or independents,
independents.
who went to Republican ballot. Yeah, so only 150. I'm not being primaried. I'm not being challenged in the Republican district. So November.
So if you get those, then you need those in September, and then your name will automatically be on the ballot in November
Correct.
6th. The election is September 4th, which is the Tuesday after
Labor Day. Right.
So if you think there might be a possibility that you're not going to be in town, you can vote absentee. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming on the
Jack,
show.
I appreciate you very much, man. I appreciate you inviting me on the show. I mean that. And I hope I get a chance to work with you. Even if I'm not elected, I hope I get to talk to you more anyway. I appreciate it very much.
Great getting to know each other.
It was
as
my
well.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For those watching at home, I've interviewed all the candidates running for the position held by Chris Walsh. I hope you'll watch all of the interviews and reach out to the candidates and look out your front window, because there's a good chance one of them is walking up the steps now. Thank you. Until next time.